Welcome, 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 warriors, wealth warriors. How's everybody doing this morning? This is Brent Harding, and I am the founder of the Wealth Warriors and your host for today's show. I'm going to be your host, your guest. I'm going to be everything because today's topic, that's mine. I own that topic and I get to share it with you. We are on a 12-step series. Every month, we are studying a piece of wealth. That's right, we're studying it. Why? So that we understand it, we know it, we grab it, we feel it. In fact, this morning, I had the privilege of having a conversation with my mother, and she said, Brent, wow, she says, she says, you've got a confidence, you've got an air. She says, what happened to you? And that's how we should be as we trudge up, as we grab every element of this exciting period of time, as we are grabbing every element. That's what should be happening to us. We should be so enthusiastic, so excited, so ready. There is nothing on the planet that can change what we're doing. So you know what? We get started every Saturday morning with what? I want you to let us know who you are. So we're going to get on the keyboards. Who are you? Where are you from? And equally important, what is it that you do? And I started this morning, I shared with you that my name is Brent Harding. I am from the Boston area. I also shared with you that I'm an entrepreneur, that I am in the business of helping people create residual income. You know why? Because residual income is a part of wealth. That means you did something one time and you are getting paid over and over and over again, like royalties. We all know, regrettably, Michael Jackson has passed. He's been gone for 6 years, but his family is living off of the creation that he made. Remember when I said we are first generation wealth babies? Well, that's what we are. So I want you to go right now in and I want you to tell us who you are, where you're from, and equally important, what is it that you do? Maybe there is somebody in the wealth commitment family. Maybe there's somebody in the wealth warrior family that can serve the need that you have. Because you know what? Being a servant leader is powerful. Being a servant leader means that you get outside of yourself so that you can help somebody else. So I want you to do it right now. I want you to go over there and I want you to get involved. Put yourself up on there. Tell us who you are and tell us what it's about, because that's what we're doing. So in the meantime, while you do that, for those that are new, who've never been a part of the Wealth Warriors, I want to quickly define wealth commitment and I want to define Wealth Warriors for you. Okay, so first part, wealth commitment. Wealth commitment is a movement. It is a movement about people that want to create wealth, not just for themselves, but for generation after generation after generation, so that your picture hangs on the wall above the mantle and they get to say, remember so-and-so? That was the person that helped us to create generational wealth. Because you know, wealth doesn't, new money, rephrase that, let me rephrase that and say it again. Old money doesn't start off as old money. It was new money that became old money over time because it got passed on from generation to generation. So that is what the wealth commitment is. It's about a movement. It's going to be 100,000 people around the world that are connected. And I saw a glimpse of that this past weekend when I was in Atlanta for a conference, and I saw 5,000 people just moving like a unit. And I went, that's the vision of what we will be. Now, that's the movement itself. The people, us, you and I, we are warriors. We are fighting for our family's financial future. That's what we do. And in order for us to do that effectively, we need to know the elements, the pieces, the components, the keys, the pillars to making that happen. Last month, we studied real estate. And very shortly, we are going to have a real estate boot camp and get that element going. But that was number 3 in the 12 steps. What's number 1? credit. And that's what we're talking about today. Last week we had Chris Bridges on the show. Awesome. And I will tell you what, if you did not have an opportunity to see that show, I'm going to have it up for a replay. Why? Because some of the language that she spoke about last week is going to be language that you're going to need for the rest of the month. But today, we're talking about, do you dare to look at that credit report? Do you dare to pull that credit report and see what's being said about you? That's what we're talking about. So do you dare? Well, if you dare, you're going to need it anyway. So I'm going to share this with you. Before the end of the show, we are going to be talking about you pulling that credit report, because you have to look at it. You have to know. In order for us to get from point A to point B, we need to know what's going on. We need to see what's on that report so we can work with that. That being said, let's get the party started. We're going to start off with a little bit of history. You remember last week on the show, Chris talked about how this credit reporting system actually got started. And it got started back in the 50s. And it got started with two men. One person's name was Fair, and the other person's name was Isaac. Together, they became Fair Isaac. And they were ingenious. And why do I say ingenious? Because they have actually turned an idea into an industry that would lead you to believe right now that they, in fact, are part of the government. And the reality is they are a private company. And out of those, we have three credit bureaus, three credit systems. And those credit systems are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Those three agencies make a monumental difference in our lives. So write them down. Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Those three entities collectively tell creditors about us. So let's do a little bit of language, a little bit of wordsmithing. A couple of acronyms and words that I want you to write down. One is OPM, other people's money. Because you remember when Chris said, you want to use other people's money because at some point you will run out of your own money. When you access credit, that is using other people's money. Now, I realize I'm talking about the primary kind of stuff, and you're going, Brent, this is the real basic. Well, you know what I have come to realize? The real basic is what people oftentimes miss. They miss the real basic. So today is the real basic. So OPM, other people's money. The three credit bureaus, because those are the things that we are in fact going to be working on. Those are the things that are life-changing. And that is, again, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. FCRA, Fair Credit Reporting Act. That is the language, that is the law that governs those credit reports that you see. That information is going to be critical for you. Creditors, those are the people that we owe money to. Trade lines, that's the information that you read on a credit report. That's the creditor. That is when you opened up the account. That is the history of the account. That is what we want, part and parcel of what we're going to be talking about is the creditors. Consumer Protection Act, because you have rights. And a lot of times we don't even realize what rights we actually have. So here's the deal. Step one, dare to pull your credit report. I want everybody to go up on the Wealth Warriors exclusive elusive site, and I want you to hashtag dare to pull your credit report. That's right, because some of us are hiding. Some of us are doing the ostrich act. We are like, our heads are down in the ground. We don't even want to see that credit report. We have got to see it. You know why? Because a lot of us are using too much of our own cash, and we're using that because of our credit. You know, the pitiable part is nowadays, credit is actually being discussed. It's being discussed in schools. There are courses on it. Back in the day, and I'm not going to age myself or anybody else, but I am merely going to say, if you are 40 and older, you probably weren't in a class where credit was talked about. And so what does that mean? That means that if you weren't taught about credit, then you know what the likelihood is? There's a possibility that your credit is already jacked. And so now we've got to start and we've got to do some things all over again. And that's okay. We're going to get them done. So here's the deal. Go up there and hashtag I dare to pull my credit report. That's right, because you do dare to pull your credit report. So I want you to go up onto the elusive, the exclusive Wealth Warrior Facebook page and hit it and let us know that you're there. Fantastic. Let's do this. So, step one, pull your credit report. You can go to an entity called creditkarma.com and you can pull that credit report. Now, creditkarma.com actually only reports for two entities. They report for TransUnion and they report for Equifax. They do not report for Experian. And that's okay. We've got two of the three credit scores because right now we just want to know what's on the report. If that report, if that credit score is less than 700, we have some work to do. And that work is going to be critical. That there may be derogatories on that credit report. There may be well, let me first put it this way. Let's get the credit report in hand. Okay, now we have the credit report in hand. Excuse me, we have the credit report in hand. Let's start looking at that credit report. The first thing that we want to do is we want to check for accuracy. Is our name spelled right? Is it the correct address? Is the date of birth correct? Is the social security number correct? Do you see other social security numbers throughout the content of that credit report? We are checking for accuracy. Is your job history correct on that credit report if job history is listed? Realize this. Accuracy of your credit report could actually change your credit score. As I'm sharing with you right now, credit score. The credit score less than 700, the lower that score is below 700, the more likely it is that you're not going to be able to access the credit you want. What that means is this. When you are not able to access the credit, no, rephrase that. You may be able to access that credit, but it's going to cost you so much more. It's the difference between getting a 5% loan and getting a 10% loan. Why? Because you are a risk. See, the credit reporting is all about risk. That's what the score is. That's what the score is about. What the score is saying is this. Is this person credit worthy? Will they pay their debt back? If I lend you $100, how long is it going to take before I get that $100 back? That's what the credit scoring is about. How quickly or how accurately, how on time you will be with paying off your debt. That's what it's about. So, if we were doing business together and you borrowed money from me, you better believe we're going to have a schedule of when I expect that money back. In fact, I recently saw an episode of the movie Pursuit of Happiness. And in that movie, you may remember Chris, who is the person that is being portrayed, has a friend that owes him $14. And he goes to the friend about that $14. And holy smokes, he must have that $14. Well, do know this. If you borrow money from me, I'm going to treat you just like that. And in reality, that's what the creditors are saying about you on that credit report. And so that being said, that's why I'm speaking of the accuracy of your credit report. And again, let me hit it one more time. Is your name spelled correctly? Is your current address listed? Any old addresses, are those addresses correct? If they are not, then we've got to do some work. Your job, is your job history correct? The accounts that are listed on the credit report, are those accounts actually correct? That is combing through inquiries. Have you actually been checking? Have you actually pulled your credit report? Has a creditor pulled your credit report? Because if they have, you want to know who has pulled your credit report and did you authorize them to pull your credit report? Now, I do need for you to know this. If you have an account that's open, whether you realize it or not, you have given that creditor authorization to pull your credit report. Uh, Generally, once a year, they're going to go in and they're going to see your history. They're going to look at how you are paying your bills, not just how you're paying them, but how are you paying everybody else. They're going to want to know how much outstanding debt you actually have. Another term you want to write down: LTV, loan to value. DTR, debt to ratio. What does that mean? That means this. Let's say you have a line of credit of $50,000. How much of that line of credit have you used? Oftentimes, this is really what's interesting, is that you will have a line of credit for $50,000, but creditors do not want you using more than 50% of that line. At a maximum, 70% of the line. The higher you are above that 50%, the lower your debt to ratio is going to be. So what it's going to look like is you have so much debt that you are, in fact, a risk, a high risk. Some people will say, well, I don't understand why my credit score is so low. My credit score is 650. I pay my debts on time every single month. I don't get why my credit score is low. It could be your debt to ratio is too high. And that is a part of the mix. As you remember, uh, Chris talked last week about the various models. The more credit that you have, you are placed in a different model. The more access that you have, you progress up the model profile. And as you progress up that model profile, it can be very, very good for you. It can also make it challenging because it puts you in a higher bracket, a higher category, a higher expectation that you will do certain things. And you remember Chris spoke about the fact that you could have this incredible history. You could have perfect credit. You could have a credit score that is 800, and you have one late payment and you plummet down to 700. And you said, I only had one late payment. What in the world is going on? And yet you have somebody else who's had multiple late payments, and they might have a credit score that is 690. Now they pay their debt, but they're in a different model category because they consistently are consistently are late. However, there is an expectation that they're going to be late, but they're going to pay. So they are in a different category. They're in a different model than that person that had that 800 credit score, that had a late payment and it plummeted. So factual information is going to be phenomenally important for you to look for. Did you get a nugget yet? If you got a nugget yet, then I want you to go up onto our elusive exclusive Wealth Warriors Facebook site, and I want you to hashtag nugget and tell me what you got. Hashtag nugget and let me know what you got thus far out of what we're talking about. We are covering the basics and we are going to move to the sophisticated. But I want you to let us know and invite somebody onto this program, invite somebody onto this broadcast, because there is a friend, there is a person out there that you and I know that needs this information, because they want to take it to the next level. You know, I had an interesting conversation last night with a great individual that I really do appreciate tremendously. And she asked a really powerful question. And she said, well, or we rather, not so much a powerful question, we had an interesting discussion on wealth. And some of us do not believe that we're entitled to have wealth. Now, here's the deal. It doesn't mean that we're greedy to have wealth. It means that we are positioned to not only help ourselves, but to help other people. You know, when you get to the place where you can give money away, when you become a philanthropist, oh my goodness, that is awesome. When you can give money away because you have so much that you have enough for you, you have enough for your family, you have enough for the next generations, and you are now in position where you can, in fact, give it away. Is that not awesome? We, I want to believe that we actually live for the opportunity to serve others and to give it away. That is what wealth does. We know we can't take it with us, but we can structure our lives such that we can pass it on. All of us are going to pay some kind of dues. It's just inevitable. But can we position our families? Can we position ourselves so that we're not paying the same dues over and over and over again? And that's the point. So, with that being said, let's progress on. We have talked about the credit report. We're going to have it in hand. Creditkarma.com, one of the locations. No, no, no. Do not go to each credit bureau and ask for a credit report. We need to first see what's there. Why, Brent? Why would I say that? Because you can raise flags. What does that mean, Brent? What you are doing when you pull that credit report, in some instances, creditors have you flagged. They're ready when they see that you're now interested. If you owe money, if you have collection accounts, red flag. We now know how to find you. That's why your address, they on the credit report, when you're pulling it, it will say, was this your address for the past 6 months? When creditors are looking for you, it's not always about your social security number. It is where you're working. It is where you live. It is anything that you've done that creates a pattern that helps them to find you. Now, the reason I'm speaking in this language is because so many people have less than perfect credit report. So many people have less than a 700 credit score. And so for those of you, I'm speaking to you, for those of you that have 800 and above, fantastic. We're going to be talking about some sophisticated things that you can do. Some things I'll talk about on the air, other things will be offline, and they will require you to make a phone call. So the flags, when you are actually owing that money, they are in fact looking for you. So when you pull that credit report, they now know. So we're going to go through Credit Karma. We're going to pull that report. We're going to start looking for the accuracies. We're going to look for the things that it makes sense, and then the things that do not. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to use a document called or rather a book or a set of laws called the Fair Credit Reporting Act. I need for you to order a copy, to get a copy of that. You get that through the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. Federal Trade Commission. So I hope you're putting together a dictionary of the language that we are going to be working with. The reason you want a copy of the Fair Credit Reporting Act is you want to know what it says so that you know how to rectify credit issues, because there are laws that govern accuracy. Your credit report is supposed to be accurate. It is a reflection of your history. It is supposed to be accurate. And if it's not, you have the right to have information removed from your credit report. And that is huge. Inquiries, collection information that is not correct, accounts that are not yours. You might have been the subject, the theft the fraud that we see going on today wasn't always there. Rephrase that. That's not true. It was there, but there was no industry that was rectifying those issues that was phenomenally public. We now have all of these companies that are dealing with credit fraud. And so you might have had things, you might have had identity theft that goes back 20 years. I remember a gentleman when I ran a mortgage brokering firm. And I remember that somebody had captured his identity in the state of Massachusetts. And he and the police were always one creditor behind. Literally, it started in the North Shore. Somebody got his credit cards and they were buying jewelry and art and all kinds of things. Those tangible items that do have value. They were buying this stuff, and the police and this gentleman were always one store, one city behind whoever had this. And the irony is that the gentleman that eventually got caught actually looked like the gentleman that owned the credit. It destroyed his credit. And if you've ever had that experience, we do need to speak offline about that, because there is an alternative. And actually, for all of you, there is an alternative. Now, does that mean with this alternative that you then ignore the existing credit report? No. It means that we're going to give you a second opportunity to live again and also to deal with the issues that are on your current credit report. Bet you never heard that before, did you? And it is legal, because as my co-host who is on once a month, Barrett Matthews, says, I do not want to see the letters FBI behind my name. How about that? That being said, it is now time. We are going to do a flash mob. That's right. We need to let people know that we're here. Not only are we here, but there is solid information that you are getting. And we need to share this with the world. How are 100,000 people going to be positively affected if we don't share it? So this is what I want you to do. I want you to tweet out and say, join us at the Wealth Warrior broadcast. It is not too late. Send them the link so that they can register and join us. That's right. So they can join us and get accurate information, because we are talking about principle number one, key number one, pillar number one. That is credit. You will never have as much money as you have access to credit. That's right. So, with that being said, we are on a countdown. Get the fingers ready. Have you opened up your Twitter account? Get your fingers ready. Actually, if you look above, you should see an icon for Twitter. You should see an icon for Facebook. So, it is your time. On the count of 5, we're going to do a countdown of 5, and I want everybody to tweet and flash mob. Now, hold on. We need to do it all together. A flash mob is when we do all of it together. So, on the count, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, flash mob. That's right. Put it out there. I want you to hit the Facebook icon and invite somebody. Let them know that we are here and we are getting information that is going to make us wealthy. We are on a 12-month collision course with wealth. 12-month collision course with wealth. We are 11 months away from you being wealthy. Now, here's the deal. Do you believe it? Because you've got to believe to achieve. And you may be saying, Brent, I don't have anything yet, but you will. Woo! Now, I want to talk to you about collection accounts, because some of you may be getting calls from collection agencies. Now, their job, they have bought your debt. In fact, the collection agencies buy bundles of debt. And what do? And they buy bundles of debt for pennies on the dollar. And their charge is to go out and to collect the money. And they get a portion of whatever they collect. So it could be, let's say, 30, 40, 50%. They might make as much as 50% of whatever it is that they are in fact collecting. So you might get a call from a collection agent. Here's what I want you to know. You want to find out how much power they have. What do I mean by that, Brent? You want that derogatory history removed from your credit report because you want a second chance and you deserve a second chance. So let's say, oh, that they'll tell you that the debt is $650 and you will say to them, and they'll say $500. And you'll say, okay, I think I can do that. I think I can make that happen. Here's what I'm looking for from you. I want a letter I want a copy of a letter that you send to all the credit reporting agencies, the credit bureaus. I want that trade line removed from my credit report. In fact, I want to receive that and it'll have an expiration date of 3 days. And what that means is that this expiration, if I don't send you this money by this date, so today is the 9th, if I do not send you this money by the 12th, then this letter is void. I want it signed by somebody who has authority. I want you to have authority. Your collection agency has authority on behalf of that creditor that they're collecting the money for to remove the derogatory. Well, we can't do that. Okay, then I want the history of the account removed, and I want it paid satisfactory. If they can't do this, is a quid pro quo. They'll say to you, well, you're not in a negotiating position. Oh, yes, I am, because I'm the one that's got the $500. And you want the $500 because you want a portion of that. The creditor wants to rectify that. So we're going to play ball. We're negotiating. And we're removing that information from your report. That will raise your points. Negotiating with them, that will raise your points. Now, were you the subject? Were you the unfortunate subject of a fraud? Well, guess what? There may be a way, identity fraud. There is a procedure that you can use that says, hey, I in fact was a victim of fraud, and therefore I should be able to have some of that information taken off of my credit report. I will tell you, I was successful with that on an account that I was working on, and it did work. Identity theft is huge. It is the largest growing industry on the planet. The largest growing industry on the planet that is making money for the thieves. It's making money for the people that are perpetrating the fraud. So what you have is you've got identity theft over here. You've got the identity theft police over here. And there is a battle that's going on. Well, guess what? If you feel that you have been a victim, then it is your right to have that derogatory history removed. There are procedures. There is a procedure for reporting that, and there's a procedure for having it removed. That's why getting a copy of that Fair Credit Reporting Act is going to be so critical. You can actually go down to your local government agency. Usually in every state, in every major city, there is an office, there's a federal office, and generally there is the Federal Trade Commission. You are able to get a copy of that. If you are not able to get a copy that you can do a walk-in and get a copy, then you want to go out on the internet and you want to order a copy, because that's going to be the basis of us rectifying credit issues. Are we good with that? Excellent. That is an incredible thing. Now, there are alternatives to your existing credit. Now, this is when we get on the sophisticated side of credit. There are some alternatives. There are ways that we can structure a secondary life for you that is legal, that you can use for everything with the exception of federal loans, your Social Security, and your retirement. That is an offline conversation. That is part of our wealth assessment. That is a component. We are putting together a faculty. You've already met some of those faculty members that you met them last year when you were watching the show. So you know there's a Chris Bridges, you know there's a Barrett Matthews, you know that there are other individuals that are part of our faculty. We are putting together teams. However, we are ready to start working with you on your concerns, on your wealth. Where are you in the game of wealth? And I hate to use the word game, but I can't come up with anything better than to say, in effect, it's the game, it's life, it's the challenge. So, where are you at right now? We want to help you get from here to here, from here to wealth. If you already have wealth, how do you structure that for the next generations? Because some of us are first generation wealth babies. We're just now approaching this so we can get the money so that we can get to the place where we're structuring and beyond. So wherever you're at, whether you're in the beginning, you're in the middle, or you are there, and now you need a wealth commitment team to take you to brighter and higher levels. Wherever you're at, we're going to meet you where you're at. We are really geared for the first generation wealth babies. But guess what? That does not mean that we cannot help those that are already there. You know what? Right now, I want you to go up, put the fingers on the keyboard, and I want you to say it loud and proud. I am a first generation wealth baby. That's right. I am a first generation wealth baby because what did we say? Old money did not start off as old money. It was new money that became old money. That is the genesis for creating wealth. We need to know where we're at so we can get to where we want to be and create wealth. And wealth is a good thing. Greed, that's a whole different ballgame. That's a totally different story. So let's do a review of what has happened here today. What we have talked about is we have talked about our credit. And yes, I'm going back and I'm taking a look at what I've said. We've talked about the fact that we need to understand the history of credit so that we understand what's going on. We are studying wealth. We are studying money. We're going to have a whole month that's going to be dedicated to understanding money. Where does money come from? Where did the genesis of our money come from? It goes back to England. It goes back to the formation of the United States of America. That's right. We're going to be going back to the 1700s to talk. I'm going to bring on people that talk about money. But right now, we're talking about number one. The number one pillar to wealth is understanding credit. Why? Because we want to use somebody else's money to access other things that we're looking for. That's right. We're looking for those things. We talked about our dictionary. Our dictionary included things like OPM, other people's money, FCRA, Fair Credit Reporting Act, FTC, Federal Trade Commission. We talked about trade lines. We talked about creditors, the Consumer Protection Act. What is the Consumer Protection Act? Do you know that there is a way for you to get triple damages when a creditor is damaged you? When a creditor has actually damaged you, you are able to support those allegations. You have the documentation. You are literally under Chapter 94A. You are able to, in fact, sue. You're able to get triple damages if you win your suit. Now, do we go to sue everybody every day? Absolutely not. But if, in fact, there is damage and it has harmed you and a creditor has perpetrated that, yes, in fact, you ought to have a copy of the Consumer Protection Act so that because we're being vigilant here. This is about our lives. This is about something that's affected our life. Why should we all of our money? You remember when we spoke about when I had Barrett on, and we talked about the fact the article that was written, that was in the Forbes magazine, and it said that in terms of people that are 50, they are X amount of years away from retirement, and the average person that is 50 years old has less than $50,000 in retirement money. So if in fact you are 50 or older, and I'm not asking you, I'm just putting the information, I'm just saying, if you are 50 or older, there is a significant possibility that you may not be in position to retire by the time you're 62. We need to expedite that process, and that's what this is about, expediting that process. That means we might be using OPM, other people's money. Why? So that we can purchase and do things over here. We are paying it back. We might need to use that so that we can do business over here. That being said, next week, you will need to have your credit report. Chris Bridges is going to be back, and we're going to be talking about repairing your credit. So we have talked about pulling your credit report. We have talked about the fact that accuracy is pivotal. You might be able to raise your score 50 points just based on accuracy. Your name, your address, your date of birth, your employment history, your insurance history, those pieces of information, the inquiries, is this information accurate? If it is not, then we want to use the power of the Fair Credit Reporting Act to correct that, to get the accuracy on. I'll tell you what, it may be a letter in your name that is inaccurate. That information needs to come off your credit report. You might raise yourself 10 or 15 points just based on that information. So we talked about that. We talked about the flags that creditors are going to be looking to see if you show up. We do not want to put ourselves out like a neon sign. So what does that mean, Brent? That means pull the credit report from an entity like Credit Karma. No, I do not have stock in Credit Karma. They just happen to be one. Please, I beg of you, do not go to each individual creditor, to each individual agency. What are the agencies? They are Experian, they are Equifax, and they are TransUnion. We do not want, and there are sub or entities. There are other credit reporting agencies, but the ones that are most noted for the public are those three. Those three scores together can positively affect your life, or they can bring, I don't even know how to describe it, they can destroy. Well, we are not going to let them destroy us. We are warriors. We are warriors. We fight for what we have the right to have. We talked about the credit agencies. I mean, excuse me, the collection agencies, and how to negotiate and work with collection agencies so that some of that information may very well come off of your report. And again, it raises the score. I asked you to go up and share whatever nugget you got from today's program. What nugget did you actually get? Was there something pretty powerful, something that you didn't know about previously? Then you want to share that information. Let's be generous. We don't want to not share the good stuff that we get. We want to be able to share that good stuff. Let other folks know that there's something that's positive out there. We talked about identity theft. Right now, one of the hugest crises that is going on right now in the American credit history is the fact that people are suffering from the inaccuracies, that they are being victims of identity theft. There are procedures now that you can utilize. And you could say, well, Brent, something happened. I believe that something happened 10 years ago. So what? If it happened, then you never contacted the police because you didn't realize that you, in fact, were a victim of identity theft. Identity theft is not new. It's just that we're now hearing about it more often than we have ever heard about it before. That's what we're talking about. So identity theft is not a new thing. Are we good? procedures to rectify that. I want you to do something for next week's broadcast. Get a copy of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Get a copy of your credit report. Get a copy of the Consumer Protection Act for consumers, Chapter 94A. Get a copy of those pieces of information. Why? Because we are going to be utilizing those to correct your credit report, to repair. Now, it's kind of interesting because when I was a mortgage broker and owned a mortgage brokering firm, what would happen is that it would be said that you can't repair your credit. You can't rectify your credit. You cannot do those kind of things. Well, I want to share with you today, yes, you can. You may drive down a street and see a credit repair company. You can correct, you can repair. Fair Isaac is not the Almighty. They are not the Almighty that governs your life in such a manner that you cannot fight back. But you've got to have the tools. You've got to know how to do it. And next week, we're going to rectify that. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now is when you get a copy of your credit report, I want you to take the highlighter and highlight the information that is not correct. We're not going to zoom in and do things right now because we want to follow a procedure. There is a way to do things. And if we do not do this correctly, then guess what? We could blow our opportunity to really make that happen. There are times when we want to hit it all at once. And then there are times when we want to take it one step at a time. We want A to B to C, not A to D and miss B and C. Are we good with that? Excellent. Want to share a couple of things. There are some secondary ways of dealing with credit. There are. You can actually utilize a family member's trade line. You can become an authorized user and borrow their credit for a period of time to help build your credit. You can, in fact, get secured credit cards to build your credit. What we want to help you to understand, though, is we need to inch by inch make that happen. Inch by inch. So we're going to use a process. So at the end of the day, we have a powerful credit report. We've got a powerful credit history. Are we good with that? So again, we're going to talk about next week, we're going to talk about using somebody else's credit. That is known as an authorized user. Now, let's put it this way. Let's not use somebody's credit that doesn't have good credit accounts because, and know this, when you are asking for that, you want to also understand that if their debt to income ratio is too high, then that doesn't benefit you. You're looking for somebody who might have a line of credit of $10,000 and has $1,000 out, $2,000 out. That's a good line of credit to become an authorized user for so that you can build on your own. Yes, there are ways. Okay, yes, no, I'm not going to say it. You're going to have to call me on that one. There's a couple of things that I'm just not going to put out on the air. But what I am saying to you is that you are certainly welcome to contact me to have a no charge conversation about where your next steps are, what you can do, so that we can actually put you into a wealth assessment team. My number, I'm giving you my personal cell phone number right here, cell phone, giving you my personal cell phone number. That is 617 438 7949. I want you to give me a call so that I can set up a time for us to have a conversation about where you are going, what things look like for you, so that we can get you on the right team. We are going to be offering wealth assessments. And yes, there is going to be a charge for the wealth assessments. We're going to have a variety of things. Some things are going to be really nominal. Some things are going to be on a sophisticated level so that we can eventually bring everybody to that place known as sophistication. Yes, that's what's going to happen. So again, want you to call so that we're able to have an offline conversation. We are also going to have a membership portal. That is fastly coming down the line. And we're going to be putting all of our content on that membership portal. That's going to be coming very, very shortly. Those are the kind of things. Membership has its privilege. Yes, yes, it does. Want to share with you what's going to be happening on next week's show and the week after. Chris Bridges is going to be back, and we are going to be talking next week about repairing as much as possible the credit that you have. We're going to go line by line. That's why we said highlight, so that we can give you some awesome nuggets. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty of our credit reports. How much can we raise that score? If you have a 500 credit score, it's going to be tough, but we may be able to raise that up to 620 and at least get you in the game. There are things that we can do, from the secured credit cards to the trade lines to borrowing a family member or somebody's trade line that has a good trade line that you can use. We're talking about giving you a step up, because maybe you did not know what this whole thing of credit was all about. And now you are going to know what it's all about. So it may be some of those things might have been the issue, the problem, or concern. We're going to rectify that. And then the following week, we're going to have Trudy back, and she is going to talk about your credit. She's going to talk about business. She's going to talk about you have a business credit, you have a personal credit. We might need to separate those things out, so that, in fact, actually not might, we will need to separate those out so that your business credit is not affected by your personal credit. We might need to correct and clean that up so that we can utilize your personal credit to get you business credit. So we're going to be talking about those items when we convene next week. Now, I want to answer some of the questions that have come up. So we're going to go back on a few things, because at the end of the show, I'm going to try to answer the questions that you have asked. And one of the questions was, Brent, give us the acronyms again. FCRA, Fair Credit Reporting Act. There is information in that act, that law, that governs how the credit reporting agencies are supposed to report information about you. Another question, Brent, you mentioned the word insurance. How does insurance play on my credit report? Well, ladies and gentlemen, insurance companies look at your credit report and they make determinations about whether or not they want to do business with you based on your credit report, because your credit report speaks to commitment. So yes, in fact, they do. Another question came up about employers. Why are employers looking at your credit report? Here's a brilliant one. You owe a lot of money. You're going to work for a bank. You're going to become a bank teller. You're going to look down and go, wow, I may just be able to peel a little bit of money off. You reconcile at the end of the day. You can't reconcile. You can't figure it out. Your boss says, supervisor, manager says, all right, go home. That person spends the next 4 hours trying to find the money that was in your pocket. Enough said? Absolutely. So employers also want to know. That speaks to pressure. That speaks to stress. You might be stressed out. You might call out sick a lot. They want you there. You have traded your time for their dollars, and they want their money's worth. So that's why insurance companies look. That's why employers look. Another question, how about if I use my child's history? How about if I use them and rebuild my history? I'm going to be strong on this one and say, how dare you take your child's life away, their opportunity, by using, well, I'm going to do it right. No, you're not going to do it at all. No, we don't do that. We are integrity keepers here. Every piece of information we give you is going to be integrity. It's going to be legal. It's going to be something that you, in fact, are able to do. Please do not take your child's history away from them. It's their life. We are living our lives right now. I know I sound like I'm preaching, But daggone it, don't do it. If it ain't right, don't say it. If it ain't right, don't do it. Enough said? Fantastic. Okay, we are winding down, last few minutes. Are there any other questions that anybody has? Because they were on a roll. Good questions. Very, very good questions. Oh, another question that, I'm sorry, I missed that one. Another question had to do with how many how many trade lines should you have? Should I close my trade lines? That was the question that came up. I'm going to tell you, if you're living in America and you tell me you don't have a credit history, somebody's going to look at you funny, because if you are living in America, we live on credit. If you are 21 years of age, you should have at least 2 trade lines. You should have, more than likely, you're going to have your student loan. That's going to be a trade line. You owe the federal government. You should have 1 or 2 credit cards, 1 or 2 low balances, credit cards that you pay off at the end of the month so that you keep that low balance. If you are a person that is between 30 and 40, the likelihood is you should have a minimum of 3 trade lines. If you are 50 or older, minimum of 4 active trade lines. That is precisely what you should have on your credit report. Low balances. Use them, pay them off. Use them, pay them off. That's what you should actually have. It's probably about as good as it gets. When is it too much? It is probably 10 is probably too much. Why? Because what the creditor looks at is how much access you have. Let's say you have, when we add up all of those credit cards, you might have $250,000. You might have $100,000. What that creditor is looking at is what happens if one day you decide to max all those credit cards out. They are terrified, because then they start looking and saying, am I going to get paid? So unless there is a specific extraordinary mission, then I'm going to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, 10 is probably too many. And in fact, if you're thinking about something like that, we need to have a wealth assessment, because you might be out of your league. You may not be. You might be on a specific mission, and you might have a structure. Let's talk about that structure. That's what I'm saying. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are approaching the 1-minute warning. Want to remind you, my name is Brent Harding. I am the founder of the Wealth Commitment. You are a wealth warrior. We are glad that you are here. Our mission over the next, now we're down from 12 to 11, over the next 11 months is to move you to wealth, is to create a movement. By the end of the 12 months, by April of next year, we should be reporting in the wealth that we, in fact, have created. No, I'm not going to say the numbers, but the properties, those kind of things, we should be reporting those. On behalf of all of the faculty here at the Wealth Warriors, I want to thank you so much for being on this journey with us today. We will see you next week, same time, same channel. Make it a fantastic week. We're out. Bye now.